Hey, it is Friday, May 23rd. We are studentloanjustice.org. We are the oldest, largest, first, only uncorrupted group of any significant size fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. We've been around since March 2005. I've got a very special guest here tonight. We have Jeff from Japan, who's one of our longtime members and intrepid researcher. And let me give you just a little bit of background here, ladies and gentlemen, the reason for tonight's special live stream. So in 2005, the Republicans in Congress and some Democrats, including Joe Biden, were successfully able to remove bankruptcy protections from private student loans. It was one of the biggest cons ever pulled on this country by the banking industry, the student loan industry specifically. Well, shortly after the passage of that legislation, a leaked strategy memo from Sallie Mae, who at the time was the big 800-pound gorilla in the world of student loans, a leaked strategy memo was found on the floor of a congressional briefing room. This was the company's long-term goals and strategies. Well, the first legislative strategy of this behemoth, Sallie Mae, was to keep bankruptcy rights away from student loans. It was their number one goal. Also in this strategy memo, and I hope to, I have it kicking around somewhere, but you should read it. It's very prescient. Also in this memo is a strategy broadly outlined about how the company was going to use the then burgeoning social media technology in this country to create groups that would sway public opinion, aka ASTROTURF. You know, Twitter actually didn't even exist when this memo was found. But here we are 20 years later, and I can tell you for sure, ladies and gentlemen, that ASTROTURF has hit the student loan industry very hard, not just including the group that we're going to discuss here today, but several other groups that we have come into, that we have brushed elbows with over the past 20 years. So the company that we're talking about today is called the Debt Collective. One other quick point that the audience should know: the way the ASTROTURF in student loans seems to work is that a group will come around claiming to be fighting for student loan cancellation, but what the group really does is does everything possible to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy rights. So if you know anything about the student loan collection industry, you should know, hopefully you will know, the only way this industry makes money, and they make a lot of it, is through defaulted student loans. Unlike all other loans in this country, defaulted student loans are uniquely predatory. In fact, the lending industry calls defaulted student loans the golden unicorn of the collection industry writ large. So there's a group that came around student debt crisis back in the '09s or so, like towards the end of around 2009. They came and went. They're actually still around, and they are doing exactly that. They're calling for student loan cancellation, but doing everything possible behind the scenes to throw water on bankruptcy. Well, here again, we've got a new, much bigger, I would say probably meaner group, and this is called the Debt Collective. They are also business partners, provably business partners with the student debt collection industry. And I didn't look really hard. It really hurts my heart to even follow this group. It's just so disgusting what they do. But I'm very thankful that one of somebody else out there, Jeff, I should say, Jeff in Japan, he did some of the dirty work, and he found exactly evidence of the Debt Collective doing what the other ASTROTURF groups have done, and that is try very hard to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy rights to student loans. Now, remember this, ladies and gentlemen. If you're an ASTROTURF group in league with the industry, you can't say no bankruptcy. We're against bankruptcy. That would out you. people would be like, what is the matter with this group? So you have to oppose bankruptcy in very insidious ways. You can't come right out and say, no, we absolutely can't have bankruptcy. You have to be a little sneakier than that. So Jeff, why don't you take us through what you found, and I will do some screen sharing to share with the audience what exactly you did find.
Well, you were always saying that the debt collective was AstroTurf. And I thought, well, they're still saying let's cancel student debt. That sounds pretty good. So I started on my own, just researching, and there's two big points. Well, first of all, is throughout their social media posts, you know, as you said, they don't directly say it, but subtly they keep disparaging bankruptcy. Oh, we don't really want bankruptcy. What was one of their posts? It's not the solution. That's not the real solution. Um, that was the first thing.
I'm gonna
And then
bring up all these quotes
I'll
as
get
you
some of these.
mentioned them.
It's kind of like, they get you okay, so you're following them and you think, "Well, they're promoting cancel student debt." And so you're following them, and then subtly, they're just putting in these messages, right? When they kinda have you in, rapport with them and you're, like, accepting their messages, it's like, "Oh, and by the way, you don't really want bankruptcy protection. You're not gonna file for bankruptcy." And it's like, "Wait a minute," you know? And when we look to see what it says, the problem with student debt isn't that the loans are lended too copiously. It's that the interest is too high. Sorry, it's very small on my screen, or that the repayment plans don't work. All of that is actually just a problem. It's the lack of it's not the lack of bankruptcy protection, which it is. That's the fundamental problem, is the lack of bankruptcy
That's
protection,
right.
which is
And
what you
just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, the founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy leverage in the Constitution. They called for it ahead of every power, every right in the Bill of Rights, ahead of the power to raise an army and declare war. And I should maybe also say I've been looking at this problem very carefully for 20 years now, and it is overwhelmingly obvious that the absence of constitutional bankruptcy rights, combined with the absence of statutes of limitations, which make the debt immortal, uh, that is the core of the entire student loan problem. It's what gives the
immortal and
lenders
immoral.
immortal and immoral. That's right. Yeah, I realized that. I started Student Loan Justice 2005. I realized that bankruptcy was the key to the whole thing, probably around 2007 or 8. And certainly the people at the Debt Collective know that for sure. Here's another quote from the Debt Collective. See, no, they won't come right out and say we're against bankruptcy, but they'll say things like, we need to cancel all student debt, not just nibble around the edges of bankruptcy protections. No one should be forced to declare bankruptcy for that kind of a debt. See, they keep harping, and this is what the other group, the student debt crisis group, also did. They'd say, oh,
Yeah.
bankruptcy is unpleasant. Of course it's unpleasant. The point is that without anybody even having to file for bankruptcy, just having the leverage of bankruptcy will force the lenders, will force the Department of Education to cancel broad swaths of the debt preemptively. The last thing they want is to see a big wave of bankruptcy filings. When we get the leverage of bankruptcy back on our side, even the big commercial banks who don't even do student loans, they will turn on a dime and they will start demanding student loan cancellation, reduction of interest, the improvements of the income driven repayment plans. All these things will happen without anybody actually having to file. So there's
Yeah,
nothing
and they're
more.
not getting the debt cancellation anyway now. That's what's funny is we don't want to get bankruptcy, we want to just cancel it. Well, it's not canceled and you don't have any consumer protections. You
Right.
don't have bankruptcy
And,
protection. So,
and let me just tell you, the golden fantasy of the student debt collection industry is to see a mass default on student loans in the continued absence of bankruptcy rights. Well, this debt collective, strike debt, they have been calling for a debt strike since they began operations in 2011. And here we go, another quote. Um, Joe Biden whispered, but folks, if you cancel all student loan debt, there's no need for a bankruptcy bill. And you're so right, Joe. The past, Jeff.
Jeff.
Sorry, I'm looking
That's
at
okay.
um, the past 5 years have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the government is not going to cancel loans unless we have some leverage behind us, and that leverage is bankruptcy leverage. That's what it is. So we're not going to see student loan. We will absolutely see student loan cancellation when we get the right of bankruptcy return. We will not see it before then. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's important to note that all legitimate consumer people who are into consumer protection and consumer rights. I follow Clark Howard. I recommend on Twitter. He's a consumer show. He says 100% you should have bankruptcy rights in America. The only people that don't are the hucksters and the AstroTurf, and anybody legitimate knows that bankruptcy is the most American thing. And what is, I think it's the movie Lone Wolves where you were interviewed, Alan. Your
Oh,
quote
that's
was
right. Yeah,
so good.
Lone Wolves on the Peacock network. Yep.
Your quote hit me so hard where you said, if you are not willing to make a loan with bankruptcy rights, you have no business making a loan. Period. Because it's by definition a predatory loan. And that's what I learned from you. And I'm like, totally, why would you make a loan where someone has no consumer protections? It's because it's predatory.
You're so right. And I've got a quick story that really ties in about all that. So I was at Occupy Wall Street. I lived there for 2.5 months or something like that. Got arrested, went through the whole 9 yards. But I remember I was having a conversation with some Hasidic bankers, so Jewish bankers. This has nothing to do with religion, by the way, but I was having a give and take with them. We had a very spirited debate, and I trotted out that exact line that you just said. I said, if you're not willing to make a loan in the presence of bankruptcy rights, you should not be making the loan. And the guy thought about it, and he said, my friend, you are right. He shook my hand. He said, we agree. And that was the end of the conversation. That's so true.
All the great, all the great world's religions talk about usury. And, to be honest, just on a personal note, I'm a reader. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita this week, the holy book of India, and
Yes.
they talk about the same thing. You should not make money from, trickery and
Usury
trying
and
to
interest. Yeah.
predator. Exactly. It's every great religion says that. Every great ethical system says that. It's just bad for America for all these people to be trapped in predatory loans. I have two more points about the debt collective, but
Yeah,
maybe
please.
you're going to
Yeah,
hit them.
continue.
Well, the two other things. First of all, I think a big problem is, as you've said, they suck all the oxygen out of the room. Imagine if all of those people that are retweeting strike debt collective, what is it? Forgot the name. Student Borrow Protection Center, Student Debt Crisis Center.
Right.
All of those nonsense, cancel. If they were doing your daily actions and fighting for bankruptcy protection, as you always say, the problem would be solved. But they get everybody. And social media is fake. It really is. I question whether all of their followers are real. A lot of the leverage I think they have is, it looks like they have all these followers, but I'm not sure. But I know one thing is real. This is the second point. They have a ton of funding. And where does this funding come from? This was the other thing when I started researching. I said, you know what? Alan is right. This is AstroTurf. They have a multi-million-dollar budget. Where does the money come from? I don't know. I didn't do the research. I should have prepared for this, but I tweeted it before. It's some nonprofit funding. What was the
Yeah,
name
it's
of
a
it?
very shadowy, it's a nonprofit fiscal sponsor that they essentially hide behind. So it's kind of like,
And where does that money come from? Yeah.
well, that's what we
And
don't
then
know.
how many paid staff members do they have? That's the other thing.
Great point.
That
The
people
debt
with
collective
student loan debt.
the debt collective advertises a staff of 25 people. So even say 10 of those people were being paid full time, That's like $1 million a year.
Budget.
I think they're in New York. Yeah, that alone, even 10 people, that's $1 million a year that you have to come up with. And I can guarantee you that distressed student loan borrowers are not providing, absolutely not providing the support for the debt collective. Hey, one other
I
quick
have
thing I
the
want to get.
screen capture though. I have a screen capture from the debt collector's website,
Yes.
and it says that our funding does not come from student loan borrowers. So where does it come from? And why are these people pouring millions into this organization if they're just a legitimate grassroots? I don't believe it. I mean, that doesn't even make common sense. So
Oh, that's really interesting. That's very interesting to me. Um, so if you're watching our live stream, hopefully you can see on the screen so this is just to complete a story. So when I was at Occupy Wall Street, I just mentioned these two rascals that hopefully you can see above, Jerry Ashton and Craig Antico, they came up to me. Jerry had been haunting our group on Facebook for the months and months before Occupy Wall Street. And Jerry was like, "Oh, I work for the debt collection industry. I have so much sympathy for what you guys are doing. I'm so sympathetic, so sympathetic." Something really didn't strike. Something seemed odd about this guy. He just kept going on saying how he was on our side, on our side. I was like, "Jerry, if you're really," and he wrote a newsletter for the collection industry. I said, "Jerry, if you don't seem right, man." I said, "Jerry, if you're really on our side, why don't you write a blog article and demand, like we are, the return of bankruptcy protections to the debt?" And Jerry goes, "Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, he never did it. He never intended to do it. I kicked Jerry off of our group. So months later, there I am sitting in Occupy Wall Street, and who walks up to me other than these two guys, Craig Antico and my this Jerry Ashton guy who I kicked off of our group. They came to Occupy Wall Street the one day that the debt collective showed up and did something on the park. They were obviously, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. I could see the dollar signs in these guys' eyes. They wanted a mass default on student loans so bad they could practically taste it. So this guy comes up, shakes my hand. He goes, "Hey, I'm Jerry Ashton." And I was like, "Oh God, it was gross." And at that point, we had a really awkward conversation. I basically brushed him off. But before I could walk away from them, Jerry takes literally a handful of money, like, I don't know,
oh no.
$100 or something like that. And he crammed it into my jacket pocket and walked away. He's like, "Oh no, just take it. Trust me. The whole thing made me sick. It made me want to vomit. I turned to the first person I saw, by the way. And I was like, just take the money. I don't want it. This is dirty money." But these two guys, Craig and Jerry, they started the debt collective's rolling jubilee. This is a scam that they've been running where they pay millions of dollars to the student debt collection industry, and they buy worthless, legally uncollectible loans that are private student loans that are past their statutes of limitations. They're not worth anything. But the debt collective pays these people millions of dollars to buy this debt and then cancel it. It's a complete con. It doesn't benefit any borrowers. It only benefits the debt collection industry. These are the guys that the debt collective is doing business with. And so
I admit, when I first heard about that, that sounded impressive to me. Oh, they're paying off people's debt. But then, again,
right,
you just have to do
it sounds like sounds like the answer to the student loan problem, until you really think about it and follow the money. And what you realize is they're just giving a whole ton of money to the collection industry to buy garbage paper that's way past its statutes of limitations. These are only for private student loans. They have statutes of limitations. So yeah, it looks really good. It's a great marketing ploy. These two guys are still doing the same thing, and Debt Collective is doing it as well, I think. they're all together on this, but they're doing the same thing for medical debt as the photo
Oh, it's like just
illustrates.
old medical debt that probably is uncollectible anyway.
Right. It's the same. It's the same con. You pay money to the collection industry to buy worthless expired debt. And then you say, oh, look at all these people we're helping because we're carrying up their loans. Those people forgot about those loans decades ago. They don't care. They probably never cared about them. They don't care about them now. I think, if anything, the borrowers, when they find out that their loans got canceled, are like, why would anybody go through all that trouble? Like, loans were never going to be paid in the first place.
It's kind of like, what did they used to call it? It was called phantom credit card debt. It's like a credit card that's past the statute of limitations, and like another company buys it and tries to see if they can settle it
Right.
for pennies on the
You
dollar,
buy it for
which
a
is
half a cent on the dollar, and maybe you can
right.
scare some old woman into, paying more than paying anything actually. So,
And
um,
why can you settle it for pennies on the dollar? Because you have bankruptcy protection.
that's
That's what.
exactly right. The
Oh,
re
I know another good one that you had recently, and I saved it. Let me see if I can find it.
Hey,
And
by
I
the way,
think
guys,
this
I know
is
we got a late start and everything, but if anybody has any questions or comments, if I can see
yes,
them on the Twitter, I will read them aloud. Sorry, go ahead.
I saved it. It says having bankruptcy rights prevents borrower abuse. This was a brilliant answer. Everybody who talks about, well, I know a guy who, wasted student loan money. Okay, well, how do you prevent borrower abuse? You return bankruptcy rights, and then the lenders and the universities will have skin in the game. That's how it's supposed to work with lending. So that was a
That's
brilliant.
That's exactly right. If bankruptcy rights had been returned in 2020, there would be no student debt crisis today. The people that needed discharges would have gotten them. The people that needed a negotiated settlement would have gotten that. People that needed a break on interest would have gotten that. It forces the lenders to behave with a modicum of good faith uh, and negotiate if needed, and more than anything, not abuse the borrowers. I can point you to any number of people who say borrowed $10,000, have repaid like $32,000 on a $10,000 note, and they still owe over $30,000 on what began as a $10,000 loan. This is what happens when you take away bankruptcy rights from a lending instrument. Uh, it's just
Well, and they
obvious.
know this. They know the Department of Education knows this. I mean, you may have heard it's not available anymore, but I talked to Wayne Johnson. I was on his podcast, who
Oh,
was the,
yes.
the chief operating officer of federal student aid for the Trump administration, and he talked about negative amortization. I can't understand negative amortization.
Amortization,
Basically,
yes.
amortize. There you go. See, this is why uh, uh, you're do all the research too. But the thing is, it's the compound interest. It's the compound interest on top of interest, where it snowballs out of hand, and people are paying for. Well, I mean, there's been so many people we talk to through student loan justice and on Twitter and stuff that we're paying for 30, 40 years, and they still they're right where they started with the principal. It's crazy, and that
It's
is a
disgusting.
narrative that's starting to spread. I told you recently, I noticed more and more people are that's finally getting through. People are saying, well, uh, I know this guy and he's been paying 30 years and he still owes more than he started. So
Right,
it's
exactly.
people are
And
waking up.
you
So
mentioned Wayne Johnson. I just want to maybe show a minute or so of this clip. And you can remember the link. You out there can remember this clip. It's just bit.ly/ hear it from
right down.
Tucker, all one word, all lowercase. Um, this is the most important interview, the most significant interview that has been done on the student loan issue of the entire 20 years that I've been doing this. So hopefully you can hear it. Um,
To address the problem, you would like to be appointed.
and by the way, this is Wayne Johnson, who ran the federal student loan program under Donald Trump.
To the Senate in Georgia to address, because you believe that's the fastest way to address the problem. Before we get to that, tell us why you were moved to do this?
The more I looked at it, it became crystal clear that the laws that form the current student loan processing system, quite frankly, are built and designed to be highly disadvantageous to students. It's really a structure that continues to foster the opportunity for colleges and universities to continue to draw unlimited amounts of money from the government. And it became ever more clear to me that the only way this is going to get changed is through law change in Congress. And I'm ever more convinced that somebody in the Senate's got to drive it forward. So I was moved to do this because working with the Secretary, working under the Trump administration, we were doing and continue to do amazing things to make the processes work to adhere to the law.
Right.
But it became crystal clear that the law has got to change, and the only way the law can change is somebody taking it on in the Congress, and I believe the Senate is the place to
So
do
the
it.
law was written by lobbyists for higher education. They're the only beneficiaries of it that I can tell. At this point, if we don't fix it, what will happen?
Well, if we don't fix it, we're going to continue to have just an ever-increasing destruction of the fabric of America. I mean, it's that profound. People are not getting married. They're not having children. You know, when somebody does get married, they take on the debt of their spouse as it relates to student loans. There's a little card I saw recently that said, "I love you enough to take on your student loan debt," and that's a profound statement because student loan debt is non-dischargeable under bankruptcy. It's so profound, and one of the disturbing things to me is that people are actually committing suicide to get out of their student loan debt.
So we have a system that's causing people to kill themselves, and the only people, again, who are benefiting are the richest people in our society, the colleges and universities.
Right.
If you're appointed to the Senate by the governor of Georgia, which is your hope,
Yep.
what will you do?
Well, the very first thing I would do is make sure that my Republican colleagues understand that it's time for Republicans to really step up and take hold of this issue. I believe the Republicans are beginning to understand that this will become a defining aspect of the 2020 election. The Democrats have kind of had a free run on it for a period of time, but their programs are designed, quite frankly, they talk about relieving the problem by way of debt reduction or debt cancellation, but they don't tell you that they just want to continue to let this unending amount of money flow into the system.
Well, they wrote these laws. I mean, the left wrote these laws. Republicans need to fix them. I couldn't agree more. If you're afraid of the coming of socialism, and we all should be, fixing this is the most effective thing you can do to insulate ourselves against socialism. We're going to get socialism if we don't do this, in my opinion.
We are already in a socialistic state because of this.
So that's basically it. You know, that interview was done in 2019. We started our petition to cancel student loans just a few months after that. And the entire issue has been just massively politicized since then. It's become the left goes to one side, the right goes to the other side, and the national dialogue has just been completely corrupted. And I would say a big part of the reason for that is because these groups like the Debt Collective, they are just so obviously fringe, extreme liberal to the left, like purposely so, I think.
Promoting so many other issues that have nothing to do with student debt, and you are nonpartisan. That's a big issue. They're just all over the place, like with different things. And so it's almost like, polarize the situation.
Yeah, it's like they purposely put up these, blue-haired liberal, like LGBTQ. I'm not picking on them, but you know what I mean? They like do everything possible to push people, middle of the road people, maybe conservative people, to the other side of the issue. And that is what has killed us over the past 5 years. We had a great bill, a bipartisan bill in Congress that would have returned bankruptcy rights to student loans, would have clawed back a nominal amount from the colleges. And right as that bill was winding its way through the Senate, that's when all those comments we see from the Debt Collective were made. And so,
I legitimately believe that there are bots on social media, especially on X,
Yes.
Twitter, And I don't know if sometimes it's probably AI stuff. Sometimes it could be people in developing countries that are paid actually to post. Like that's a thing I've been reading about. That's when I
Right.
said
For
social
sure.
media is fake. But you get all of these people posting, negative things about canceling debt or bankruptcy protection or something, and they just appear out of nowhere. And it's like, why do you care so much about this issue? Like, who's
Right.
directing, you know, but they always, it's like control. What do they call it? Not controlled opposition. That's what the debt collective is. They call
Well,
it
it's AstroTurf. It's controlling, it's steering the narrative.
the narrative. Exactly. It's framing the narrative. And,
And, you have to
and
think
the other
it's,
thing
yep.
I've been trying to talk about recently is all like the fastest growing demographic of people with student loan debt is over 62, because that goes against, they're trying to push this narrative that it's all young people who want to eat, what is it? I forget, avocado toast. And that's why they don't pay off their loans, which is just nonsense, because the fastest growing is people, my age group. I'm Generation X. I'm going to be 50 in June. Okay. I'm 49 years old. And, people that are getting I just, it had the figures for how many senior citizens are in default, but it's like 1 in 3 senior citizens are with student loans, are in default on their student loans, and now they're getting their Social Security checks garnished uh, again. Yeah, you're there. You go. Older people outnumber young people. So the
It's
narrative is always it's young people who don't want to pay it off, but
exactly
it's just not
young,
true.
blue-haired, liberal snowflakes who eat avocado toast. That is the face of student loan borrowers, and it's thanks to
It's
these
pretty
groups
good
like
though. I gotta admit, I had some avocado toast and it was pretty good. But the thing is,
um,
nobody is not paying off their loans because of avocado toast. That's it's older people. And the other thing is, it's red states. That's where all the student debt is. That's what you've been showing. It's not
you're exactly
the
right.
whole narrative, is just false.
Yeah, if
And
you look at
a lot of those people I like. I'm not against all those people, but they're not the ones with student debt. It's people like me from the state of Georgia. I was born and raised in Georgia, where Wayne Johnson was running for Senate in Macon. That's
Yeah,
where the
Georgia is
student
one
debt
of the
is.
worst states out there, by the way. In fact, we've got a bunch of interview requests from Georgia. Maybe after the show, I'll hook you up with a reporter. But
Oh
um,
wow.
you could buy every acre of farmland. You could buy every farm in Georgia twice with the student loan debt that is hanging around the neck of the state of Georgia. Kid you not, $85 billion. The total value of every acre of farmland in Georgia is only like $42 billion. Like, and I just did a thing about Georgia today. Georgia's annual exports, agricultural, so peanuts and cotton and I think peaches or something,
Soybeans?
and wheat,
Peaches.
soybeans, all their top 5 agricultural exports combined uh, is like $3 billion. Well, the Department of Education takes like $4 billion in interest out of the state of Georgia every year. So those are the sorts of numbers that we're looking at. And one other quick thing, it's not just that older people are the fastest growing demographic, it's that older people outnumber younger people with student loans. I kid you not. There are more people over the age of 50 with student loans than there are people under the age of 25. More people over
Wow.
the age of 35 than under the age of 35. So in actual fact, absolute numbers, student loans are more an older person's problem than a younger person's problem. And I don't know.
But the other side of that is, as you said, younger people are borrowing more. I think
Yes.
I told you, like now the average debt of the same university that I graduated from, that I have student debt from, is about 120,000 more on graduation day. And that was,
Yeah.
I graduated like, a little over 20 years ago. So
Right.
that's just crazy. I mean, they have the same debt that I have after 20 years, and compound interest and
It's
fees, and
insane.
like that on day one. So it's not
You know,
getting any better, that's for sure.
if our generation got screwed, and we did, like no other generation has ever been screwed, but the up and coming generation, it's like screwed squared. It's like screwed to the third power. It's like I can't. It's just incomprehensible how absolutely screwed the kids coming out of college today are.
I have
And
one
they're
question I
not
want to ask you.
liberals. They're not conservatives. They're just young people trying to survive. And the fact that it's really the red states that are hurt worse by these loans. The best states are the liberal coastal elite states like Massachusetts, Washington State, Oregon, California. They're relatively speaking, they're doing great compared to Georgia, North South Carolina, Missouri, Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida. Just one last example. Disney World brings in $5 billion into the state of Florida every year in annual revenue. The Department of Education takes $6 billion out of the state of Florida just in interest, just in fake, created from thin air interest on federal student loans. So these are the numbers that we're looking at, and the Republicans had better wake up. I love Wayne Johnson. I love that Tucker Carlson interview. And again, out there, if you want to dial in that interview, you can easily find it. Just bit.ly/hear it from Tucker, all one word, lowercase. It's the strongest interview out there. So Jeff, we've gone a little bit long. I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, but
I've had so much fun. Like I could talk to you forever. I've been watching you forever, and I'm glad I finally had the courage to come on a live stream, because I should have done it a long time ago. Like,
well,
but can I ask you one question?
Please. Yeah.
I want to know about, I haven't kept up as much, I took a kind of Twitter break, but I heard that there's been some big changes in, I know PSLF, public service loan forgiveness, has never worked. It's never forgiven all the people that it should. But I heard lately they're trying to eliminate, so all the medical doctors, nurses, healthcare workers. And then the other thing is, apparently before you could include your internship, it would count towards PSLF credits. They're eliminating that. So think about how short-sighted this is. All our nation's healthcare workers that we need are now being, you're punishing people for learning to save lives. Unbelievable. Have you heard anything about that?
The philosophy behind it is just, I mean, what kind of a country does this? Most first world countries, there are no student loans. The thing with public service loan forgiveness, this is the big, beautiful, but not beautiful, very ugly bill that's winding its way through. It just passed the House. It's going to be taken up by the Senate early next month. There is still time to fight this bill, guys. It's got some even worse provisions than what you just mentioned in it. It is a Christmas tree. It's a Christmas gift early for the student loan industry. It's the wish list of people like Virginia Fox and the whole sordid industry. And this is not a partisan issue, guys. Our members are half Republican, half Democratic. Probably most of our members are some shade of gray in between. But man, Donald Trump had better be very, very careful. In fact, we are pushing Donald Trump this week and next to take all of the language regarding student loans out of that bill. And I'll have a lot more to say to that at some point, but I think we need to wrap it for now. Jeff, it's been an honor and a pleasure finally meeting you.
Yes. It's been so much fun. I'm glad to see you. It's nice to connect Japan and the US. Hello to everybody in the US. And if anybody sees me and me, we went to the same school, we're in the same boat. So, and everybody, thank you so much. It's made me feels so good to know that there's a community and a lot of us are in the same situation, and there's no shame in getting an education. It's not a crime of moral turpitude, and you shouldn't be stuck in predatory loans. And the one thing that I believe is that this will eventually end, because it just mathematically, as you've said, like, it's failed a long time ago.
I tell people, at the end of the day, the loans will absolutely mathematically be canceled. The loans will not be paid. The only question is whether we get there sooner or later. It could be much later, like upon your demise, and nobody wants that. But I want the sooner thing, not the later thing.
I like it in my lifetime.
Yes, exactly. I would like to breathe air, being student loan debt free, if only for a little while. So Jeff, thank you very much
for everything you've done. I really appreciate it. Everybody, you should read his book, The Student Loan Scam, the first book about
that's true.
Please get involved. Don't get tricked by fake ASTROTURF like the Debt Collective. Debt Collective is if you want to stay in debt the rest of your life, join the Debt Collective. If you want to solve the problem, get involved with student loan justice. So there you go.
Okay, that sounds great, guy. So have a great weekend, everybody. I'll be back soon. Jeff, again, thanks. Go to studentloanjustice.org, sign our petition right there. But more than anything, go to studentloanjustice.org and get into the habit of doing our daily actions. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Jeff. Have a great night.
Thank you. Peace and love, everybody. Have a good night.
Good luck. Godspeed. God bless. And as Jeff said, peace and love.